Hello guys, we're just waiting for our numbers to go up. Once our numbers go up slightly, we'll begin. We don't want to leave anyone behind. So please tag people in the group, tell them to join. Once we get 50 concurrent viewers, we'll begin. We are on 34 right now. Yesterday we had 100, so we need to do better, guys. Just tag your friends, ask them to join, and we will begin. Okay, I think we can get started. How are you guys? Please let me know how you are in the comments. Let me know how excited you are for day 2 of the Sadc Climate and Wash Virtual Summit. Yesterday was a very good opening day. Yesterday we were celebrating the International Day of the African Child, and we did it in style. I'm so happy for the turnout, and I would love the same energy today as well, as we are conducting a very important couple of sessions here today. So let me just get a few more viewers in and then we will begin. So let me know in the comments what you guys think, or what are you expecting from today's sessions. We have 2 very wonderful sessions lined up. Today, we have a session on the advocacy spectrum. This session will be the first session that we will be doing. It is a session being conducted by our very own, one of our co-facilitators, Mbali Ngobese, who will take us through the advocacy spectrum, and she will run you guys through a crash course on where you are as an advocate, because you're not a one-man army. You cannot do it all on your own, and you cannot do everything well, but you need to focus your energy on the things that you can do best, especially in the climate and wash space. You need to be able to focus your energy on things that give you the highest impact output. So let me know in the comments, what do you guys think this session is all about? Let me try to read through the comments. I'm seeing Malawi representing strong, just as it did yesterday. People are loving the music. Awesome. I think we should also incorporate the music tomorrow as well. Zimbabwe and Malawi. Awesome. Okay. Oh, I see what's going on. Portugal is playing. Okay, so people are watching Ronaldo instead of getting climate education. Okay, I see, but it's fine. We will manage with what we have now. So let me not waste anyone else's time. Let me briefly introduce our wonderful first speaker and the topic that she will be taking today. So let me just put her picture up so that you guys can see. There she is. All right, oops. Okay, hopefully you can see her. Okay, maybe she's familiar to some of you, I wouldn't know. Maybe some of you know her from whichever space. Africa is a very small and connected community. So it's more likely that you've probably run into her some way, somehow. You never know. But anyway, here we have our first speaker, Mbalitando Gowese. She is from the Global Shapers Community Cape Town Hub. But besides her role in the Global Shapers Community, she is a South African health systems researcher and emerging global policy leader, currently completing a master's in philosophy in health systems at Stellenbosch University. She currently serves as a policy and strategic communications officer at ISC Intelligence in Science in Brussels. Yes, she is also a postgraduate assistant tutor in global health. And besides that, she also has roles in the United Nations, guys. These are the levels that we are bringing to this virtual summit, United Nations levels. Yes, she is a UN level policy engagement person, including serving as programs coordinator for the 2025 UN Financing for Development Conference and participating in the Science Summit at the 80th session of the UN General Assembly. And it doesn't get bigger than that. So, Ms. Mbali, I'm going to invite you to just briefly introduce yourself, what you're going to take us through, and what you want the people to know about you. So, let me give you the stage. The stage is all yours. Please go ahead.
Okay, thank you. Hello, everyone, and welcome to the session. As Tanatsa told you guys, thank you for the lovely intro. My name is Mbali Ngobese, and I'm joining you from the Global Shapers Cape Town Hub. And yeah, I'm currently pursuing my Master of Philosophy in Health Systems, where I am currently focused on universal health coverage and national health insurance. I am also a policy and strategic communications officer with ISC Intelligence and Science, as well as a lived experience advocate. And yeah, I'm very, very passionate about health systems, science diplomacy, and systems change. So today, over the course of this summit, I would be honored and excited to guide you through this critical conversation. Over this course, we have spent a lot of time looking outward. We have looked at DRR data, we have looked at the failing supply chains, we have talked about the massive, intimidating scale of climate and the wash crisis in the Sadc regions. So, yeah, for the next few minutes, actually, I would want us to look inward. We need to talk about ourselves. We need to critically examine how we as young African leaders show up to fight this battle. This session is called the Advocacy Spectrum. We are leading with impact and inclusion. And I really believe that we are here to dismantle the idea that advocacy is just about holding up a cardboard sign and heading to the streets and chanting. We are going to look at how we move away from simple noise, performance, and outrage and move toward a highly structured and highly effective form of leadership. We are going to learn how to actually fix things on the ground while ensuring that we bring absolutely everyone along with us because, nothing for us without us. And yeah, let's dive in. We can start with,
Okay.
let's kick off with part one, please.
All right. The stage is yours whenever you're ready.
Thank you. So, part one, we are going to talk about the global extremes versus the Sadc reality. So, when you log onto social media, you open X or watch international news networks, you are constantly bombarded with a specific image of what climate activism is supposed to look like. It usually looks like young people marching in Western capitals, holding up signs and yelling at politicians. Because that image is so dominant that many young advocates in Africa, we feel the pressure to copy it. We feel that if we aren't marching or going viral for protesting, we aren't doing real climate work. We have set up a almost false spectatorship, and I honestly believe we need to stop. We need to take a real step back and ask ourselves a very serious and grounded question to begin with. does that specific type of activism actually make sense for us here in Southern Africa? Or is it very globally north centered or north facing? Does it look at the realities that we face every day? Does it take our context into account? Does it look at our specific infrastructure, history, all of that? And honestly, to answer that, we have to honestly break down the differences between, the global stage and our global reality. So, next slide, please. Please look at the screen. You'll see that when you look at the global stage, you have coalitions like Just Stop Oil in the UK, founded in February 2022, where their entire focus is halting fossil fuels extraction to combat the human caused climate change. How do they do it? Well, they use disruptive direct action actually. They slow march on major motorways, they block oil terminals, they throw soup at famous paintings and deface monuments. Then you have Greta Thunberg, who gained global attention in 2018 at the age of 15. She started a solo school strike outside the Swedish parliament, pressuring governments to address climate change, which inspired the Fridays for the Future movement. Now, let's be absolutely clear. Their anger is justified, their science is right, and their disruptive models absolutely forced the media to pay attention. But we have to realize that their advocacy is built for a Western context where their basic everyday infrastructure already works. When activists in London block a road, it's a massive inconvenience to their functioning system. When they strike from school in Sweden, the water at their house still runs clearly from the tap. They are using disruption to fix a future problem. Next slide, please. But when we look outside our own windows, our crisis is entirely different, which means that our leadership and our advocacy must be entirely different as well. I think we aren't just fighting to lower emissions for the year 2050. We are actually fighting something deeper than that. We are fighting a battle of survival versus performance right now. So, if you think about the reality of our region, a dry borehole somewhere in the Sadc region requires a completely different kind of activism. If a rural clinic's water tank runs dry, holding up a sign outside that clinic does not magically make the water run. Furthermore, in our fragile economies, we have to do exactly that. We have to consider collateral damage of our protests, who it affects in the greater scheme of things. If the youth block a major road in our cities, who does that actually hurt? It doesn't hurt the billionaires or the top level politicians who can fly over that said traffic. It hurts the vulnerable street vendors who rely on transport. They affect our parents, uncles, brothers, and sisters, people who rely on the informal economy to feed their family, to that for that exact day. So we cannot just afford to copy and paste Western styles of disruption. We have to mature our movements. I believe we must transition from simply demanding attention from the government, because it's clear that we have the power to demand that attention, and move further to actually getting people to physically build the backup infrastructure our people need to survive today. We're going to talk actually about the concept of what we call tactical activism, actually. Next slide, please. Thank you. Okay, so this is how we redefine youth climate leadership for the African continent. We have to accept a hard truth. Outrage alone does not build solutions. Anger does not drill boreholes, and panic does not purify our contaminated water supply, unfortunately. But, tactical activism means that we are able to balance our outrage with actual execution and implementation. It means that we blend accountability with action. And yeah, we do so by asking ourselves, do we still push for systemic policy level change? And honestly, in tactical activism, we do. Absolutely. We must constantly hold our local councils and governments accountable for failing infrastructure. But while we are waiting for that slow bureaucratic wheel to turn, we don't just sit there. We use frugal engineering and localized problem solving to protect our communities. Tactical activism is combining your voice with your hands, take the power back into your hands. I feel it is the realization that building a sand filter for a community is just as radical, if not more radical, than marching in the street, because you build empowerment. There's something you can't take away from people, and that is their feeling of empowerment. Yeah, please look on our screen. Next slide, please. So the three lanes of our advocacy spectrum. So now that we know what tactical activism is, let us move into part two, and let's actually look at the actual mechanics of how we can actually execute it. How do we organize ourselves so we aren't all tripping over each other trying to do the exact same thing? If everyone is protesting and no one is building, then what policy is going to change, what change is going to happen. Tactical activism comes down to balance, and I feel like to be effective, we break our movement down into three lanes of the advocacy spectrum. Every single person watching the stream right now has a natural skill set that fits you perfectly into one of these three roles. And our goal is to figure out exactly where you belong. And yeah, in doing so, you can operate at your highest potential. Next slide, please. So, the spectrum is divided into three highly powerful lanes, if we look at them closely. First, we have the policy and disruptive lane, which is, home to the strategist. And this is the person who reads the fine prints. You are meticulous, you read your contract. When you get your sign up for anything, you read everything, paper to paper. They understand local governance. You look at the bylaws, you look at budgets. These people don't just yell at the municipality. Strategists hold local municipalities accountable by walking into meetings with localized data and actual budget breakdowns. They are the ones demanding systemic change at the boardroom table. And then at the secondary level, we have the constructive and grassroots lane, which belong to the builder. These are our engineers, our innovators, our practical doers, people who want to get their hands dirty. They don't just want to sit in the boardroom like the strategists. They also want to get their hands dirty, as I said. They physically engineer backup systems. They deploy localized infrastructure and install wash solutions directly into communities that need them the most. So basically, they turn climate theory into PVC plumbing and clean water. And then thirdly, we have the narrative and digital lane. And these are driven by our storytellers. You build the greatest water filtration system in the world, but if no one knows about it, the movement cannot scale. The storyteller then uses their camera, their words, their voice, their digital platforms to reclaim the African climate narrative. They understand that Africa deserves not to be an anecdote, but to be the author of its own story. They document community resilience. They talk to people. They look at local innovation, proving to the world that we are the creators of our own solution. We are not helpless victims waiting for foreign aid. But in this moment, actually, I would like everyone to quickly pause right now. Next screen, please. So please look at the screen, and yeah, let's grab our phones. Please go to the Menti link in the chat. And yeah, basically this challenge is, I just want to know who is in the room with us today. Which area of the advocacy spectrum do you currently feel most equipped to lead? Are you the strategist who is ready to tear apart a municipal budget and break down every line of a new policy they're trying to implement? Are you the builder who is ready to construct a decentralized water system, get your hands dirty, get down into the nitty gritty? Or are you the passionate storyteller who is ready, to change the world and change how the world views Africa's resilience? So please, please go ahead.
Can you guys all see the poll? I put a poll in the YouTube chat. So please let me know if you can see the poll and if you can vote on it. If you can, just say yes. So we're not using the Menti link today, guys. We're going to use the poll. Let me know if the poll is up in the comments. In the comments, please. There's no link. It should be in your comments. If it's not, let me know so that we can sort that out. But the poll is live. Let me know.
Maybe we should play some background music.
They want the music. All right. From my end. All right, fine. Since the poll is acting funny, let us just put it in the chats. But from my screen, it is saying the poll is live. Okay. Let's try again. Let's try that again. I see one person had voted actually. So one person saw the poll. So the poll is somewhere in the chat. If not, we'll just swiftly move on. It's not visible. It's fine, guys. We'll just move on. Bali, please go ahead. You can continue with your presentation.
Okay. So apologies for that, guys. But please, if you continue, if you have access to it, please continue to, engage. So we are on our, okay. So now that, let's say, we know our roles and we know how to execute tactical activism, we must then address the most critical and sensitive parts of this entire summit. Let's get to work. Let's move to part 3, and it's called, leaving no one behind. Basically, we can build incredible things, we can write incredible policies, but here is a hard and sometimes unsettling truth that we must face as educated, connected youth leaders. Advocacy without inclusion is simply elitism. And If our climate interventions only work for the people who are already well off, then we aren't solving the crisis. We are just upgrading our own privilege. Next slide, please. So, this brings us then to the ultimate leadership test for our generation. It is relatively easy to host a virtual summit or write a sophisticated policy document from the comfort of our laptop. But if our advocacy and our physical solutions actually do not explicitly serve the most marginalized people in our societies, then our solutions are basically rendered useless. True leadership means that our solutions must serve the marginalized. It must help those in need, but also help us. When a climate shock hits, it hits the poorest and most vulnerable first, and then it hits them always the hardest. We absolutely cannot leave the vulnerable behind while we chase abstract climate goals under the guise of trying to make the world a better place for everyone. Our work must reach, the actual rural areas. Our work must reach the places it intends to serve. It must reach the informal settlements and the people who do not have a voice in the boardroom. Next slide, please. I think that to guarantee that our work is truly inclusive, every project we build, we must make sure that every policy we write and every story that we must tell stands on four pillars of inclusion. First, we have the gender dynamics in WASH. In the Sadc region, when water infrastructure fails, women and young girls bear the absolute heaviest burden. They are the ones forced to walk long, dangerous distances to fetch water, which takes girls out of schools and exposes women to massive, massive safety risks. Our WASH solutions must prioritize first their safety and dignity, as well as educational access above all else. Our second pillar is then disability accessibility. When a flood hits, how does someone with limited mobility evacuate? When we build a new community borehole for a hand washing station, is it designed in a way that someone in a wheelchair can actually reach it and use it? And if our infrastructure cannot be used by a person with a disability, then yeah, in nature, it is exclusive and broken infrastructure. Our third pillar would be economic realities. We cannot design high tech, expensive solutions that require communities to import costly replacement parts. We must operate within the strict economic realities of our people, designing solutions using local affordable materials, that the community can maintain and maintain themselves, without having to source outside funding. We do not want the issue of, catastrophic debts. And lastly, I think bridging the age gap. We cannot be arrogant and think that the youth have all the answers, but we must bridge the gap by combining our raw energy and the technological skills that we have, with the generational wisdom our elders have, a good shared partnership, just like, tactical activism relies on balance. I really feel that bridging the age gap works on the same principle. And yeah, not historical, sorry, child. Our generational elders know the historical patterns of, the land, the soil, the water. They have experiential knowledge. We need their indigenous knowledge that just as much as they need our modern tools. Next slide, please. And yeah, finally, as we prepare to close out the session, let us move to part 4, which is the anti-burnout rule and transition. Because fighting massive, broken, systemic challenge problems every single day is incredibly heavy work. if we don't look out for our own mental health, then we will burn out. When advocates burn out, the movement grinds to a halt. We have to learn how to protect our peace while we build our power. Next slide, please. It's very important to pace yourself and trust your network. I honestly feel like my final mandate to you is this, pace yourself and trust your network, build your network. Do not be afraid to lean on people because they will help you. They are in the same fight with you. Look, fighting failing systems is exhausting, and you are allowed to feel the weight of it. There will be days when the drought seems too severe or the municipality seems too stubborn. But I think we should remember that you cannot pour from an empty cup, and solo heroism kills movements. You know, um, yeah, overhyped individualism has become an issue. And I think that also kills movements. You do not have to be the engineer, the storyteller, and the politician all at once. If you try to carry all three lanes at once on your own back, your back will break. But the secret to longevity in climate advocacy is simple. Master your specific role. Trust that the youth community will be able to hold up other lanes. And if you are a builder, focus on building. Trust the strategist is fighting the battle, the policy battle for you. Trust that the storyteller is fighting the battle for you as well. Lean on each other. I think that is how we survive. Yeah, next slide, please. And I just want to say, honestly, guys, thank you all so much for your time, your energy, and your attention today. Let's drop the solo heroism and the overhyped individualism and bring back, the concept of Ubuntu. Let's figure out our own lanes and let's ensure that our solutions are deeply inclusive. Let us get to work building the future of the Sadc region. One of my favorite taglines that I will leave you guys with is science without compassion is just as dangerous as ignorance. So yeah, thank you for having me.
Thank you so much, Mbali, for the wonderful presentations. I've been following in the comments. People are loving your presentation, and thank you so much for taking the time to take us to this wonderful and much needed session of understanding where you fit in, because there is this thing that happens when, especially for those who are starting in the climate space, they feel like they have to know everything about climate change. They have to know about green entrepreneurship. They have to know about the policies. They have to know all the definitions and all that. It's very wonderful to get a grasp or an understanding of each and every aspect of chemical, of climate change as you can, but know or direct yourself to the place where you feel most directed towards. So each and every one of us is different, and in our difference, we are all equal, because whatever you are doing in the climate change space is there to make the world a better place, whatever role you have to play, whether you're the one building in the communities, whether you're the one signing the documents, or the one, doing the petitioning and all that. Everyone has a very important and equal role to play when it comes to climate change. So thank you, Mbali. I'm going to have to let you go. Thank you so much for joining as we prepare for the next session. Please, let's clap hands for Mbali. I'm seeing fire emojis in the chat, and that's wonderful. All right, so the next session that we have is actually a session that is conducted by me, because I am going to take you through a session on food sovereignty and the power of narrative. One of the three pillars that we saw was the pillar of storytelling. And a lot of the times we allow our stories to be told by people who actually don't live our own experiences. We allow our stories and our narratives to be basically given out by people who have no idea about our everyday experiences. A lot of the times you see news headlines, you see articles about your own country, and you'll be like, where is this happening? I have never seen such a thing in my own country, yet they are talking about my own country. And that is only the case when we don't have people to actually tell the stories from our own, from our own roots. So just to give you a brief background of myself as to why am I fitted to present this to you. Well, as you can see myself on the screen, this very handsome young man on the screen, this is Tanasco Mapfumo. That will be me. I am the founder of Agro 263, the main moderator for this Climate and Watch Summit. And in my capacity as a climate justice advocate, I have founded Agro 263 and have managed to capacitate myself by being a part of a lot of organizations and movements that have to do with climate justice. And where I feel most compelled in the climate justice space is the space of storytelling, because especially from where I'm from, Zimbabwe, we don't have many people who are telling the narratives as they should be told to the people that will be effective in changing the story. Okay, so as I introduced myself, I'm the founder of Agro 263, and every single day, my team and I from Agro 263 work directly with the soil. So we work alongside our local farmers and we face the harsh truth of how our communities get their food. Food insecurity or food security is a very big problem in Zimbabwe. Today, we are going to talk about two massive ideas and put them all together into one presentation. We are going to talk about the issue of food sovereignty or food sovereignty, and we're also going to talk about the power of narrative. So I'm going to take you through that session. Hopefully it is a short one. All right, so let's start off by looking at our screen, at the slide that we have here. We are going to start with a very simple visual test. Look at the left side of your screen. You'll see two images there, stacked on top of each other. We have the first image here that is written imported fertilizer, and we have some seeds at the bottom there. Now I want to ask you a very important question. All right, which of these two images resonate more with you? All right, most people will try and say, oh yeah, it's the seeds at the bottom. These are your organic seed, your indigenous seeds, your rapoko, your bambara, your millet, your sorghum, whatever name you call it within your language. But the harsh reality is we've all become too used to imported fertilizers. And in as much as this has become the norm, there are very severe consequences of allowing these imported chemical fertilizers to be the norm when it comes to growing our food. All right, so we have System A. System A, this is the farming system the world tells us to use as Africans. It is a very expensive bag of imported chemical fertilizer and commercial seed. Now, directly below, we have System B. This is a handful of our own indigenous seeds, groundnuts, pearl millet. These are the seeds that we grew, our ancestors, our grandmothers, our grandparents grew up eating, and this is what they knew. This is the heritage-based food security that they were aware of, right? But that story has been drastically changed, and we are now used to imported grain. Okay, so the indigenous seeds survive, but look at the reality. Our government pours millions of dollars into these weak commercial seeds, and while completely ignoring the strong indigenous seeds, we are funding our own starvation, and we have to change this today. So it's very unsustainable for us to be relying on imported seeds when we can grow our own. These imported seeds, at most of the time, they are actually not used to our soils. They are very harmful to our environment, and also they do not produce as much yield as our indigenous seeds. All right, so I want to take you through the illusion of food security. What do we mean by the illusion of food security? To fix the problem that I just narrated, we need to understand the difference between the two terms. The first term is food security. I'm sure you've heard that phrase or that word being thrown around before. Food security this, food security that. You hear this word on the news all the time. But food security is a trap. Okay? Look at the image on your screen right there. Look at those hands waiting for someone else to drop the grain into their hands. That is what food security looks like. Food security just means you have enough calories in your stomach to survive the day. It does not care where the food comes from. If a foreign aid truck parks in your village and hands you emergency relief, you are considered food secure because you have enough food to survive. If foreign companies flood our local markets with these cheap, highly processed junk food that puts our local farmers out of business, the UN still calls it food security. It is a terrible system and it keeps our communities alive, yes, but it leaves us permanently dependent on outside forces. It means we are always waiting with our hands open. And that is the narrative that we want to change. Hopefully by the end of this session, we won't obviously change the world in 30 minutes or so, but we'll definitely get an idea of why we are suffering and how to stop it. Now let's talk about the power of food sovereignty or sovereignty. Now, the second term, and this is what we are fighting for, food sovereignty. Look at the woman on the screen, right? She is standing in her own field, working her own land with absolute dignity. And that is the level that we want. Food sovereignty means the community has the absolute right to control their own diet. It is the active physical decolonization of our agriculture. It means we decide exactly what crops we want to grow. We decide how we want to grow them. It means the money we make from farming stays in our own pockets, not the pockets of massive global companies that are shipping these chemical fertilizers to us at very expensive rates as well, putting our local farmers out of business. We prioritize our own local soil and our own heritage seeds over internationally shipped fertilizers. This is the golden rule that you must remember today. The person who controls the seed controls the soil, right? And controls the entire future of the nation. I'll repeat that. The person who controls the seed controls the soil, controls the entire future of the nation. All right. So there's a very big difference between food security and food sovereignty. Food security you means you have enough to survive for the day, but you are not in charge of your own diet. You're allowing someone else to come in with imported food from God knows where, but they are not there to give you that dignity as an African farmer. Okay, you don't have the dignity that I grew this from my own land. I I grew my own indigenous crop. I grew my own indigenous seed, and that is the level that we want to reach in Africa if you want to ever become properly food secure or food sovereign. So let's not fight for food security. We need to fight for food sovereignty. Okay. So how do we reclaim our heritage in agriculture? To win this fight, we have to start growing our own heritage crops again. Look at the beautiful crops on the right side of your screen there. Look at the sorghum and the millets. But before we plant them, we have to change how we think about them. Okay? Especially as young people. We look at some of these indigenous sorghum, cowpeas, and we shun them because that's how we've been conditioned to view them. All right. For a very long time, colonial system has told us that indigenous crops are backwards. They call them poor people's food. Yet these same crops, these millet, the amaranth, the cowpeas, they are known as superfoods in Europe. They are known as superfoods in the West, and they are sold at a higher price. Yet within your own country, you are told that these very same indigenous crops are backward. And hopefully you're seeing the discrepancy when it comes to that. The very same food known as a superfood in the West is known as backward in our own homeland. So we must kill that right now. We must reframe the narrative. These crops are not poor people's food. These are elite biological technology, which our ancestors have been aware of forever. They have deep root systems that can find hidden water, which means they can survive in droughts. These imported seeds cannot survive in our environment because they're not meant for our environment. We need to stop looking down on our own heritage, and we need to treat these seeds with massive respect because they are the only things that will save us in a climate crisis. The way to save our agriculture is not buying more fertilizer. No, it is reclaiming our heritage-based agriculture. All right? So now let's talk about the frugal reality of agriculture. So knowing this is not enough. Now that you know, it is not just enough for you to know and be aware. We have to build systems, and we have to do it with what we have today, right? Which brings us to this issue of frugal agriculture or frugal engineering in agriculture. As young people, we cannot sit around waiting for a massive grant from a foreign government to come and save us. And we cannot wait for slow political interventions either. We have to use frugal engineering to build our backup systems right now. So, what do we mean when we say frugal engineering? Look at action one on your screen, if you can read along. It means we go out into our communities today and establish indigenous tree nurseries to protect our local water and stop soil erosion. Action 2, it means we are building low-cost community-managed seed banks using cheap, accessible materials like repurposed drums, and we gather indigenous seeds, we store them safely, and we protect them ourselves. We build with what we have exactly where we are. Okay? Now, here is the urgency and why this is important. Why are we talking about this with such massive urgency? Look at the picture on the screen. Look at the cracked earth, right? Because the Sadc region is completely out of time. Well, let me not say that actually, because that may instill a sense of panic. But let me just say that we are running out of time, especially if we do not take action. There is always enough time to take action as long as enough people are there to act and to partake in this heritage-based agriculture. So we are living through severe hangover of the El Nino crisis right now. The El Nino crisis has devastated the Sadc region, especially when it comes to our food security. Millions of people across the DRC, Zimbabwe, Malawi, Mozambique, Lesotho, they are facing crisis-level food insecurity. Our rivers are turning into dry sand. Community boreholes are pumping nothing but air. The big fields of commercial maize are literally burning up under the sun before they can even grow. If your plan is to just wait for the next rainy season and hope that things get better, you don't have a strategy. You're not a strategist. Extreme climate shocks are the permanent new baseline. So the new strategy has to change. We have to build a farming system that expects the drought. And this is where our indigenous crops come in. These are crops that are used to the harsh conditions of our climate region already. So these are the type of agricultural-based interventions that we need to be focusing on, and not just waiting for the new rain season, cloud seeding. All these things, fair and fine, they do help, but they do not give us sovereignty. They do not make the interventions last. They do not fill us up for the next generation. They fill us up now, but our future, when it comes to food security and sovereignty, is compromised. Okay, let's look at the impacts. Okay, the true climate resilience. What do we mean by true climate resilience? If we take aggressive action and switch to full sovereignty, we will see three massive impacts in our communities. The first impact is true climate resilience. Okay, look at the sorghum field that is on your screen, the picture of the sorghum field right there. It's that simple. These sorghum crops, they will survive because they are biologically aligned with our local ecology, right? We will eliminate the massive failure rate that comes from trying to force water-heavy foreign crops to grow in our dry environments. When we plant our heritage seeds, we restore the natural health of the soil, and we guarantee that our people will have our harvest. Okay, so we are guaranteeing our harvest if we are looking more into the indigenous heritage-based crops. Impact number 2 and 3, we have economic freedom and nutritional healing. The second massive impact is economic freedom. Okay, look at the picture of the young lady, the young farmer there with her money. Right now, that farmer is trapped in a crushing recurring debt. They borrow money to buy chemical fertilizers and these foreign seeds. The rain fails, then the crops die. And now the farmer owes the bank what they cannot pay back. And that is happening every single day in Africa. People are borrowing money to buy seeds, to buy such and such and such, all these inputs to plant these foreign crops that are not suited to our environment. And then they end up in debt. But We were never like that as Africa. We were very food sovereign before colonial agriculture invaded our stomachs. Okay. The third impact is nutritional healing. Okay. The SADC region is suffering from a terrible crisis, okay, of malnutrition. We have stunting, wasting, and obesity happening all at once. This happens because we eat cheap processed carbohydrates. When we return to our nutrition dense ancient diets, we literally heal our communities from the inside out. So the solution is to go back to our roots. And hopefully I'm making sense to you guys. Perhaps you may not have cared enough about food security or food insecurity. Maybe you're privileged enough that you have enough money to go and buy food in the grocery shop. But either way, one way or the other, the prices of the food that you are buying are very much affected by what we are talking about today. We need to be food sovereign, all right? And one of the ways that we can achieve this goal is by taking charge of our own narrative, all right? What do we mean by this? Okay. We need to reclaim the lens, dignity versus poverty porn. What do we mean when you say poverty porn? If you look at the Western headlines about our own region, you'll see classic images of a child with flies all around them, a very big stomach, kwashiorkor, dry fields everywhere. And that is the image that the West is seeing about Africa. It's doom and gloom all the time. And this even compels them further to try and bring us even more of these fertilizers, because to them, they are what? They are trying to help. But the reality is, we don't need these foreign chemical fertilizers. We need to take charge of our own narrative, okay? We need to take charge of how we tell our own story as Africans, all right? So let's talk about the rule of storytelling. As youth leaders of this continent, we have a strict rule for how we should tell our stories, okay? This is what we need to do. Our mandate is to document innovation and not just suffering. A lot of the times we are just taking pictures of dry fields of maize somewhere, and then we publish it, and then people keep feeding into this narrative of a hungry Africa, starving Africa, Africa that cannot save itself. Yet, before colonization, rarely would you hear that someone died of hunger, or some of these new things. They never used to happen because there were systems in place, not just in terms of the types of crops that we were growing, but the community aspect of agriculture has now been lost. Yes, there's a lot of modernization going on, but we can still modernize and keep our heritage, especially when it comes to our food sovereignty. We must absolutely refuse to produce or share poverty porn for social media clicks or donor sympathy. We need a new actionable focus. You must take out your phones and your cameras and you must point them at the community seed banks. Point them at the indigenous tree nurseries you're building. Point them at the frugal engineering prototypes that you are building. You have to show the world that African communities are highly capable architects of their own survival. This is a much more meaningful story than suffering. People are more willing to buy into a story if it's about to succeed. A success story brings in more support than sympathy. And hopefully you're understanding what I'm talking about. We all know the ads. Children in Somalia, they are suffering, they are all that. Yes, there are droughts going on. Yes, it's true. But that is all that the West knows. That is all that the rest of the world knows about Africa. How about the innovative sides? How about the stories of a new breakthrough that youth have done this? Youth are fighting food insecurity in youthful ways, in new ways, and those ways don't have to be expensive at all. Those ways don't need tens of thousands of dollars. With just a few community savings, you can create food security for hundreds and thousands of people. Cascading action that is birthed through local action. All right. So rewrite the headline. So here's a little exercise for you guys. I'm sure most of you are familiar with the news. You are familiar with some of the narratives that we hear. Here is a little task for you that we are going to do within the comment sections. Here is a headline right now. There are three headlines. This is the first one. What I want you guys to do is to take this headline: Millions face starvation in Southern Africa as international donors struggle to deliver emergency grain shipments. What I want you guys to do is to take this headline and change it for yourselves. Change it to a way that you want it to be portrayed, in a way that it will not compromise the image of Southern Africa as if we are lazy or as if we don't want to participate in our own food security. So we're going to put this narrative control into practice right now. So this is the first question. Just rewrite the story in a way that you feel, right, will make it sound better, will give more dignity to Southern Africa. So maybe let's just take 5 minutes. Yes, make it sound like make it sound more appealing, not necessarily appealing, but just improve on it, give it more dignity to the Southern Africans. Feel free to change the wording without losing, obviously, the message behind it. So I don't know. Let me see some of your comments. Let me see some of your comments. Let me see your comments, guys. We are doing a short exercise, just 2 minutes per question. Let me just see some headlines. Rewrite this headline in your own words. Essentially, that's what I'm saying. Rewrite it in your own words, give it more dignity. Okay? The art of storytelling. Okay? Someone said Zimbabwean farmers, communities, and partners unite to strengthen food security amid regional drought challenges. Brilliant. That's a very brilliant headline. It gives hope. The headline that I just read from Tatenda, it gives hope. So a headline should not just slam the people affected, they are hopeless. No, it should also give some insight, some light to it as well. Okay, so that is how you do storytelling. I think Favor, one of the presenters yesterday, touched on this as well. The slides, you guys have the slides. I sent you the link to the slides for you to go through this again. But anyway, we're just touching on these things. We will then go deeper and deeper into these topics within our WhatsApp chat over the course of the next 4 weeks when we are drafting our framework. And when we are drafting this framework, all of these presentations that we have been talking about are going to come into play. So normally when people write a grant application, normally when people write, I'm sure a lot of us have applied for some kind of grant or some kind of financial reward from organization. Usually when we're writing a story, we tell, people are suffering, people are dying, people are hungry, give us the money. But you don't actually tell the story of how we're going to innovate it, how we're going to sustain the grant, or how we are going to make sure that this small donation cascades for the next 10 years and it doesn't have to be a recurring influx of grants. So that is why storytelling is important. And that is why headlines like this, millions face starvation in Southern Africa as international donors struggle to deliver emergency aid grain shipments. It means that the locals themselves are not involved from this headline. You understand? Example 2, scorched earth and failing crops. Helpless rural farmers wait for international relief as unprecedented drought destroys livelihoods. These are the kind of headlines that you will receive in your news if you don't take ownership of your own story. These are the kind of headlines that they will tell and distribute about you if you don't tell your own story. If you do not take ownership of your own struggle, someone will tell it and they will make it very colorful because they want to be appealing to their own people. They also want to be known as the hero. The heroism, the Western heroism when it comes to climate action in Africa is very real because our local people, they are not interested or they don't want to take charge of their own climate action. Climate action is not just doing something with your hands, it's also storytelling. Why don't you also become a YouTuber or go on Instagram, go on TikTok, right? Yes, it's fun to do all these TikTok challenges and all that. It's very beautiful. But why don't you just diversify your content a little bit? Talk about the struggles of Africa, yes, but talk about the innovation that's people, the youth, the hope that the youth have in reclaiming their own um, climate change narratives, or the narratives that are framed around their climate crisis. And the last headline, as an example, malnourished children bear the brunt of Southern Africa's devastating harvest failure. You will be labeled a failure if you do not take charge of your own country, of your own, not country, sorry, of your own food security, of your own climate story. Do not be labeled a failure. Rather be labeled an upcoming innovator. Be labeled as someone who is trying to solve their problems. And like I said before, people are more willing to go behind you if they see the work that you're putting in. But if people do not see that you're actually putting in work, they will decide for themselves that this is what's best for you. And when they do the thing that seems best for you, it will end up not being what's best for you at all. Okay? Temporary food security versus food sovereignty, two different things. Okay? So this is just just a taste of some of the headlines that are circulating on the news. I know young people probably are not interested in the news, but if you're in the climate space, you need to be aware of what's going on outside and within. Okay, and more so within, because what's going on outside, most of the times, it has nothing to do with you. Sort out your own mess at home. Okay, then you'll become a true climate advocate. Okay, the final mandate and action. So what are we saying, right? What is the final thing that we are pushing towards you guys? So those headlines that you were seeing and the headlines that you're hopefully writing in the comments, that's exactly what the future of climate or of African climate journalism needs to look like. I'm going to close this presentation with one final mandate for everyone in this summit. Okay, there are 4 points on the screen. Let me remove my face so that you can see the 4 points. Okay. Yes, there are 4 points there on the screen. Feel free to read along with me. Right. The first thing, control the seed and control the story. Remember, I say to you guys that he who controls the seed controls the soil and controls what? If you're listening, please put it in the chat. He who controls the seed controls the soil and then controls the finish the blank. Let's see who was listening. All right. And then number 2, you must actively push your local municipalities to strictly subsidize indigenous seeds and heritage-based farming models. We're not saying go and throw stones at the municipality offices, no. But it took you through a very wonderful session on advocacy and how you must behave when it comes to advocacy and the types of advocacy that work for our context. We should not be throwing soup. It works where it works, but it doesn't work in our own climate context. We will not succeed if we make enemies with the people who are in charge of the policies and the gatekeepers, the governments, the NGOs, etc. Okay. Yes. Number 3, you must step away from your computer, go outside, plant a tree, plant an indigenous tree, start building your own small indigenous tree nursery, and construct decentralized seed banks in your own yards or in your own wards or communities. Okay, that will be very impactful. Number 4, you must relentlessly broadcast this resilience to the world to protect the African narrative. You must relentlessly broadcast this resilience to the world to protect the African narrative. Because if you don't tell your own story, someone else will, and they will do it in a way that will not be beneficial to you. Okay, my final message to you guys is let's grow together. Okay, we are going to beat this climate crisis by ourselves, not by ourselves, but we are going to be the ones in charge. We need all the help we can get, but we as the youth in Southern Africa and in Africa in general must be at the forefront. And for you to be at the forefront, you must know what you are doing and you must know what you are saying. So that is why these sessions have been important so far. They introduced you to climate anxiety, disaster risk management, and all these other things. Even the two sessions today, the two sessions tomorrow. We have two very wonderful sessions tomorrow, and those will put the final nail in the coffin, just to give you a taste of what it means to be a climate advocate and the things that you must be aware of. Okay, so that has been my presentation, guys. This is the end of our presentations, but we are not just going to leave it there. I believe in the power of interacting. I believe in the power of working together. So just like yesterday, we are going to do another mirror board. Okay. Yes, we're going to do another mirror board. Yesterday, some people were saying they had challenges with the mirror because I think it only allows access to 100 people. I think there's less than 100 people in this chat anyway. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to drop the mirror board in the chat. You can click on the link. It will take you to the raw board. And the questions that we are answering today, let me just beam the mirror board so that you can see what I am talking about. Okay. All right. So today on our mirror board, same as yesterday, all right, we are going to be answering this important question. What is a harsh daily climate change related struggle in your community that high level politicians and global policymakers completely fail to see? What is a harsh daily climate change related struggle in your community that high level politicians and global policymakers completely fail to see? So, what you are going to do, same as yesterday, okay? This is zone B. You are going to drag a sticky note. You click and you drag and you just drop it in there and you start to type, okay? You just type the question, all right? And then once you type in your answers to the first question, you then answer the second question, which is how will you use your voice to bring that reality to the top? Who do you need to challenge and how will you make them accountable? So you're going to go again, grab a sticky note, drag it into the blue section right here, and then that's it. So the mirror boards will continue to be live even after the YouTube link goes off. You can even answer yesterday's mirror board as well. Feel free, please, to participate. This is a collaborative thing. I do not believe in dictating things to anyone. That's why we wanted to make it as collaborative as possible. So I'm going to drop the mirror link in the chat, in the comments. Okay. All right. Someone is saying they will do that. Awesome. So I'm going to drop the link. The link is now live, guys. Let me see your hands working. Okay. People wanted the music, so I think I should bring back the music while we are typing away. All right. So far, one person has managed to come in, Puleng. She was the first person yesterday as well. Puleng, thank you so much for being always on time. Okay. 3 people, including myself. Apologies if you are probably joining from your phone. It might be a little bit difficult to jump between apps, but with modern day smartphones, you can even do two screens at the same time. So anyway, what I'll just do, I'll just read a couple of the contributions while I'm playing the music, and in 5 minutes we wrap up, guys. We call it a day, and then we will continue the discussions on the WhatsApp group, and then we get ready for tomorrow's session. So for those who may not yet be familiar as to exactly what we are trying to achieve here, this is not just another summit where people are just being told things about climate change. Okay, no. This is a summit where we are contributing together to not only document or detail the issues that we are facing um, in our countries, or in our region, but we're going to collaborate to create a framework for each and every single one of your countries. And then we're going to pull together all those frameworks into one comprehensive Sadc framework, where each and every single one of you will be a co-author. So in the course of the next 4 weeks, you will get your certificate. I know a lot of us have a very bad habit of joining these things only for a certificate, but it's not about the certificate. The certificate is just there to say, I was there. But what did you do when you were there? And what we want you to do is to be co-authors of these documents. And then these documents, we will then use them as tools that we will present to our municipalities, to our governments, to our policymakers, to the UN. We have Mbali, she's been involved with the UN, so she'll be a very good asset when it comes to guiding us as to how we can effectively bring our frameworks to people who can, influence the change. So this framework is going to have a very big impact, guys. Not only will we use these frameworks to advance climate education in our schools, not only will we use this to even apply for grants, but it will even allow for countries' climate change policies to be affected in a positive way. But you do not approach these people with with your empty hands. You don't just approach with passion. Okay, you approach with something. This is what I've done. This is what we've done. This is the research that we have conducted as the Sadc youth, the 500 Sadc youth who joined up for this movement. And we have managed to create this very wonderful document detailing not all, but a lot of the issues that we are facing as youth when it comes to climate change within our countries. This is how we believe that we should start acting out our climate action, and we need you to come in and support us in this way. So it's going to be a very wonderful document. I believe that it's going to be very impactful, and you will definitely be able to tell people that I co-authored this document. You will get your certificate, fair and fine, but that co-authorship, I think, to me, is much more of an achievement. So as I think I have 20 people in the Miro board, I'll just hover through what they are saying, and I'll just play the wonderful song we were playing. Let me know if or not, but yeah, let's scroll through what people are saying. All right. Oh wow. I hope you don't mind pulling. I'm sorry. She pulled away as soon as I scrolled in, zoomed into her contribution. But if you don't mind, let's just see what you're talking about. So she said the absence of environmentally sound waste management. Most of our waste goes straight to landfill. Informal recyclers are also treated as a nuisance or, at worst, criminals. I have a friend of mine who's actually doing a dissertation on this, the role of informal waste pickers in the city of Blaoyo, which is where I'm from. And definitely, this is a very wonderful point that you've raised, Puleng, because informal waste pickers are people who are very valuable in our society, but they are treated as if they are trying to infiltrate the job of the municipality, yet they're actually adding value. So they can be added into the official structure of the municipal waste treatment system. Okay, they can be given incentives, given PPE, things of that nature. Well, that's my thoughts, my 2 cents. I don't know what you had said. Proper investment at a local government level in sensitizing communities to the importance of waste separation at the source and the critical role. Beautiful, wonderful, very wonderful point. Something that most people miss. Let's see what others are talking about. Water pollution, definitely. I'm from Zimbabwe, so I definitely know that this is a problem at all levels, whether it's the national water supply itself, sewage in the neighborhoods and all that. Tadiwa, you said environmental management agency fines, factories dumping waste into rivers, more inspection and accountability needed. Definitely, that is a fact. Okay, I see our Sadc friends aren't here today. I know DRC is playing football, so I'll be shocked to see anyone from DRC in the chat, but there's nothing here. Okay, so more people are just figuring out the board. Yes, so anyway, this board will be live 24/7 for the next 7 days. So please feel free to add your 2 cents, your 4 cents, whatever cents to the day 1 mirror board and the day 2 mirror board, and even tomorrow's mirror board as well. So we're just gonna give it 2 minutes for us to vibe to the music as we are gonna close our session. A wonderful thanks to our first speaker, Mbali. You have been great. Thank you so much for introducing us to the wonderful topic that you presented on, which was on the advocacy spectrum. And then I gave you just a little taste of what the difference between food security and food sovereignty is. A lot of the times people talk about food security and we think we've achieved something when we receive donations. Trust me, we are only creating further problems for ourselves when we do that. We need to be food sovereign. We need to own our climate, our own food production, and our nutrition, because it's our nutrition. Do you understand? What works in the West is not what works right here in our own contexts. All right. So then we also talked about storytelling. Everyone is a storyteller, whether it's word of mouth, whether it's through graphic design, whether it's through webinars like this. I'm not a public speaker. I hate public speaking. But because of my passion for climate action and climate change, I felt compelled enough, brave enough to talk to hundreds of people such as yourselves to talk about these things that I'm passionate about. I'm a founder of an organization. Founding an organization is not hard at all. It starts by you creating a LinkedIn page, telling your friends, banding together as a community, doing something memorable. It gets some recognition and it blows up from there. Trust me, do not be afraid to start. Okay, and when you start with the facts. Don't just have passion with facts. Have passion that actually has impact. So that's why this summit is important, so that you're equipped with some of the tools and the knowledge that is associated with climate action and climate change and all these other things. So I'm going to allow you guys to go through the mirror board. All right. Yes, I don't see any more contributions. Yeah, but it's perfectly fine. Most of our contributions will come in the form of the framework drafting. So more details on that will come. So thank you guys for joining. Thank you for being wonderful as usual. It's unfortunate that I was competing with Ronaldo today because Ronaldo is playing somewhere in the US and people rather watch Ronaldo, understandably, but this is probably more important than that. And anyways, guys, thank you. You've been a wonderful group as usual. Feel free to exit the stream and we will see you tomorrow, same time, same place. Please do subscribe to the channel. Because there are some videos on this channel that have to do with food security. They are hidden. I hid them on purpose so that I could unhide them after this session so that you can understand why those videos are up in the first place. Feel free to also follow Agro263 on LinkedIn, our partners as well, the Global Shapers Community Cape Town Hub and Bulawayo Hub. Crust Eco Network will bring in a very incredible presentation tomorrow. So please stay tuned for that. And Elevate Trust as well will close out our session. And yes, Thank you so much. Goodbye.